I wanted to start there because, Sabrina, we're not going to go into the detail of your life, but you've been a hugely successful entrepreneur, a businesswoman. If we put it at its most bold, you've made a fortune, you live in a great place, but your heart is to be an active philanthropist. Tell us about how you drive that change that matters to you.
If you look at the richest people in the world, one person could actually have more money than a couple of countries combined. Bill Gates has more money than Libya and Jordan, entire country. He doesn't need that much money, and I kind of felt the same way, and I made a decision to work with inner city youth and their education, because education really is the way that we can give opportunities to anyone to achieve.
And there's a big personal dimension in there as well?
I had a great mentor.
Yeah.
And my mentor, Frank Baxter, who is also ambassador to Uruguay, and he was chairman of Jeffries for many years. I met him when my publicist forced me to go to charitable events. I ended up sitting next to him 3 times. So we thought, maybe God is telling me to do something. And at that time, luckily, I sold my first business for a lot of money. And he told me, I'm going to teach you how to spend your money really meaningfully.
Yes.
And he did.
Mike, when I know you've got a new company now on sustainability, but when you were CEO of UNICEF in the UK, I remember we used to say that the education of girls in particular is one of the most certain ways to secure the future.
Absolutely, and all the statistics back it up. And for the men in the room, I apologize, but you actually have very little impact on children, on the sort of health, well-being and education of children. If you educate young women, you educate the next generation. And what we found in countries like Afghanistan, or we found in countries like Somalia, where women were denied education, the whole development of the country fell off a cliff. And that's happened time and time again. And there is no greater thing that you can do within an education system than educate young women and girls.
Paul, in the years that you led Unilever, but also you're chairman of the International Business Council, you're involved with the UN Global Compact as chairman of the UN Global Compact. Do you think companies should be proactive advocates for transformation as well as financiers of transformation?
Both yes, within the constraints that you have to put around there. But it's interesting, 76% of your employees now in the world in these big companies expect their CEOs to be active out there on issues relevant to their companies. So don't have an opinion about everything and make noise about anything and everything, but be specific on things is very important, especially if it relates to your businesses, then that obviously resonates more. But if businesses don't speak up on some of the broader issues that are out there, I personally don't think in the current environment that politicians would move at the speed that they're currently moving. And you see it on climate change especially, where obviously, if you look at the International Chambers of Commerce, which I chair, there are 48 million companies, and there's no doubt lots of disagreements around different issues. But overwhelmingly, we now see the majority of them feel the pressure on climate change, for example, and an increasing amount of companies want to speak out and put plans in place that address the issue. But they can only address so much if you still have preferred subsidies or governments actively pushing it in another direction. And it is business that bears the brunt of that. And many CEOs now, as you have seen, are willing to speak out in an increasing way. To create more billionaires who then give away a little bit is not the solution to solve societal problems. You know, the combined wealth now, you have 2,000 American companies that have $4 trillion. That's not healthy in the first place. Nobody asked themselves the question how they got the money. And the average wealth that is given away is 1.4% every year, whilst the wealth accumulation is 10–12% cumulative over the last 10 years. So I'm not so even sure that they're generous.
From your perspective of thinking about the emotional intelligence that leaders need in order to lead this kind of change, how do we get them to be empathetic? How do we get these asset managers and investors to be empathetic?
Raj Sisodia and Michael Gelb published recently a book called The Healing Organization, and it gives examples of directors of a company or the owner of the company that had some sort of epiphany that realized, that helped them ask themselves the question, when they heard something bad was going on, either some employee became homeless or there was just a high degree of stress among their employees or a huge amount of distrust, they asked themselves, my goodness, what sort of organization am I running? And so they looked into it, did some research, asked the difficult questions, and changed the way they were doing business and decided that they wanted to heal rather than hurt.